Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we have the battle that you've all been waiting for. In corner one, we have the man who knows the secrets to every cryptid. And in the red corner, we have the master of time itself in fantasy worlds. Welcome to my guest tonight. There we go. Peter Simeti and Rob Geronimo.
I need to clip that. That has to be my intro. That's great.
White Alakazam three-way fights? No. I'm just I'm just the referee. So
That was brilliant.
You really outdoing yourself tonight. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Quite the showman.
Well, we got to build it up. It's been, I don't know, a month of a lot of indie comics drama, and I thought,
Oh, really?
why don't we bring the drama home?
Okay.
An Alterna drama, and we will see who
This is gonna be boring as all hell then.
who can promote Alterna more.
Oh.
All right.
For the Thursday evening champion. All right, so you guys have been pretty busy. Let's get down to it right away. April crowdfunder. We've got 4 issues on the slate this time. Pete, can you give us an introduction to what exactly is on offer here?
I'm sorry. What was that? You broke up for me anyway.
Oh no. Why don't you tell us what?
He's coming in and out a little.
Oh,
Yeah, got a little wavy.
all right, let's try that.
Whoa.
Pete, why don't you help us out? Tell us what issues are coming up in April for Alterna.
Announcer voice.
Okay, sure. So we got Blood Realm number 14, Horace H. Hoover number 3 of 5, and Unit 44 number 9 and number 10.
All right.
Yeah, good stuff on there.
So this time you're doing crowdfunders in 2 locations. You've got on Indiegogo and on the Alterna site. So why have you chosen to go for 2 as opposed to just one or the other? Is there any difference?
I mean,
in the
mostly
campaign?
we started off doing this like we do a lot of other things, listening to the backers, the readers. People were asking for us to give this a shot on our own site, and a bunch of people also wanted us to still leave it up on Indiegogo. So we figured, all right, well, we could do that. You know, we'll split the campaign between the 2 of them. Pretty much the same stuff is on both. There's a couple of differences. The Alterna site has advertising available, but the Indiegogo doesn't. And then the Indiegogo is not as comprehensive because it's not the entire Alterna site. But on this one in particular, I think this is like maybe the 4th one we've done like this, something like that. The 4th kind of campaign we've done like this where we split it. On this one, we've got a lot of back issues in the add-on section on Indiegogo. I think it's almost like 150 back issues. We usually, in the past, just put back issues that were correlating to the new issues that were being kind of released on the campaign. So it would just have been like Blood Realm, Horace H. Hoover, Unit 44. But this time around, we've got a lot of issues on there, even ones that don't have anything to do with those titles. So it's been interesting to see because there's certain people who they love Alterna, but they just want to purchase on Indiegogo. And then there's certain people who just want to purchase through our site. And then there's some that will buy through both. But the ones that have been only going through Indiegogo specifically, it's been interesting because there's a lot of books that I'm seeing that they're picking up that they probably never knew about before because they never would have been on a previous campaign. They were books that completed their runs a while ago. So we're getting a lot of those back issues sold through the Indiegogo, which has been nice. And then in addition to that, it's a pretty slimmed down campaign compared to what we've had, even though there's so many back issues. There's not a ton of merch on there in particular on the Indiegogo. We've got a lot of art options so people can get commissions and whatnot. But if they want to go to the Alterna site, there's over 400 items to choose from. So if people want to go and check that out, they're more than free to do so and combine that with their bundles or whatever they're putting together from the new campaign, and then do one checkout, and that's it. So they can just kind of get everything in one
Nice.
shot.
And so seeing that some of these back titles are doing well, does that make you consider adding more titles to the Alterna lineup in the future, or do you think you're good with the core amount that you have now?
No, I really want to focus on, if anything, and we've been doing this for 18 years, and I've seen a lot of what I've done right, what I've done wrong, and what other creators have done right and have done wrong. And I really want to focus more on a core group of titles, especially because our focus in particular now is on ongoing titles. And we really want to start kind of building up almost like an Alterna universe. In order to do that and have crossovers every now and then, you really have to have the right group of creators. You have to have the right group of creators with the right mindset and the right characters and the worlds that can make things interesting. So that's what we're going to be doing in a couple of months with me and Rob, putting together a King Cryptid Blood Realm crossover with a campaign launching around June. But it really takes a specific bunch of things to fall into place for that kind of thing to happen. Otherwise, it could be disastrous across the board, or you cannot have an interesting story or characters that seem like they would make sense. Like, it would be fun to see them have a crossover. So you really got to have the right stuff all into place. But I'm not focusing on getting more titles or anything like that to come on board. I'm really focusing on trying to grow what we have.
Yeah, that's interesting because yeah, I think the first time I had you on it was almost 5 years ago now. I asked you about an Alterna poster with all of the characters in there at the time, and you were like, well, it's difficult because we're indie
to
owned.
the side of me, and it's I'd say 80% of those aren't here anymore, which is another reason why I'm not really trying to continue to take on more titles and more creators and things like that. I really want to focus on what we have, especially a group of creators who I feel like they're doing things the right way, and they got great characters, and they got the drive to want to do it. If things change in the future, things change in the future. Things are always changing. That's the only thing that you can really guarantee. But as far as people that are going, well, will you get more titles on board? Will you have maybe some past titles come back? Nothing from the past title lineup is coming back. And that's mostly just because those creators told their stories. They don't really want to continue those stories. So as far as older creators coming back, if they have something new and they enjoyed their time at Alterna or whatever it might have been, and the readers liked what they did, then that's great. I can kind of talk to them, but I'm not really in pursuit of something like that. We don't even have the submissions open anymore on the Alterna site. Yeah, so that's taken down.
That's
it
probably
came out
gotta
on
be a big
Wednesday.
relief
Submissions
for
are
you.
still there. Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
and I love seeing submissions, but the past year and a half, I've talked about this before, and for those who haven't heard it, it's interesting because I've seen mindsets really shift in about maybe the past 2 years specifically in terms of submissions. I'm finding a lot of people are rushing now more than ever. They're trying to just get something out there and get in front of somebody. And they don't really want to necessarily take the time to work on their craft. And I'm not in a position anymore like I was maybe 12 years ago or something to handhold a creator throughout the whole process. You got to really know your fundamentals. And if I tell you CMYK, the files have to be in CMYK, and you're like, what does that mean? I'm like, okay, well, it's going to get worse from here. So it's, it's just that kind of a thing. We need people on a different level at this point, and and I'm finding that those people are out there. Absolutely, there's tons of people like that out there, but they're in a position that I think I found myself in along the way, because I didn't go through a publisher. I made my own publishing company, and then I kind of learned from there years and years ago. So I see a lot of people out there with the mindset that I would publish, but they don't need a publisher. Maybe they need an editor or a graphic designer or a letterer or whoever on their team, but they don't need a publisher. So it's different. And that's I think where the whole entire possibly the whole industry is changing, but I think specifically that's where a lot of independent comics are changing. So I really want to focus more on what we have and work with the people that are here, like Rob and Wes.
Mhm.
They're really, really good guys. So it's that kind of a thing where if my time is better spent doing that and then also focusing obviously on my own projects, I think the readers will get way more out of that than kind of willy-nilly going here and, well, that person, they're like sort of there, come on
Yeah.
and we'll publish you. And, and then there's going to be a lot of problems throughout because there always are. And then all of a sudden my time can't be focused towards the people who deserve it or myself, and has to be focused towards people who maybe aren't as deserving of it.
So then what made now the right time, like, crossover?
It just seemed to make sense between having the idea and the characters and things falling into place with both the story I'm working on and the one that Rob is working on. It just seemed to make a lot of sense. There's a detail that happens because this is an in-continuity crossover too. There's a detail that happens at the end of the story that I don't want to necessarily talk about because it'll spoil things of what's to come. So it's something that'll benefit both titles, but not make both titles dependent on having crossovers. Keep the crossovers as a fun, tight thing, as opposed to there's a big event and it's confusing and complex and stupid, and then we have to go and retcon it or reboot it because that's not happening. No reboots, no takebacks.
So you're not going 1990s Marvel.
No, we're not. It's one of those things where it hopefully really entertains the readers that do end up getting that crossover when it comes out. And it adds something, I think, to both titles, to both worlds. So it's more like an extra dimensional crossover or something than than something that would take place just within a town or a city or something like that. It's very epic in scale, and the stakes are equally as epic. So because of that, I think the readers are really going to love it, especially if they're reading King Cryptid or Blood Realm, or maybe both. I think they're really, really going to enjoy it if they're reading both. And getting Kier Covington on it for the art, too, where he's familiar with both worlds as well. He's so friggin' talented. Just a beast.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I've seen... I'm not sure if he's been posting it or if Rob's been posting some art that Kier's done for Blood Realm.
Okay, he just recently posted Chiron on a horse, which will be seen later.
That's
this
incredible.
It's ridiculous.
Looks amazing.
He did this.
I'm jealous he can draw a horse as well. So Rob, how did you get interested in this idea of a crossover?
Well, I mean, I always loved crossovers in comics way back, but when Pete mentioned it, it made perfect sense because both our worlds kind of lend itself to the concept of a crossover. Like, it doesn't break the rules of our two universes. That's the thing. It's not like, oh well, this doesn't make sense. The rules here in Blood Realm don't really. It all fits, and I think that's what's going to be really cool about this. It's like a great supplemental material that's going to enhance the characters. Obviously not necessary, but it's really going to enhance who these characters are because they're interacting with each other, which is something that is just so freaking cool.
It's something that I think that's the last crossover that anyone would ever expect to see. Like Unit 44 would make a lot of sense with King Cryptid. It's on Earth. They're a paranormal group of agents that come across monsters and creatures and weird stuff all the time. But Blood Realm, and it's not even on Earth.
Right.
But there's things that happen within the context of both titles where this will make 100% sense. And I'm really curious to see, once it happens, the fallout of it with readers, because I think they're going to go, what's going to happen now? Yeah. It's going to lend that kind of excitement, I think, that was so great about any time that characters met, where there was like a big event, before it became a constant normality within comics to have an event. It was that kind of what happens with the fallout of this? Where do we go next? What's the possibilities here? And that's what makes it fun for me, and I think for Rob too. If it's not fun for Rob, you could say it. It's okay. You won't hurt my feelings. It's fun for
Yeah.
me still. Can't take that away from me. That's what's so fun, I think, because if people are really into it, maybe King Cryptid calls up Chiron Morvel one day and is like, "You want to come out and hang out for a bit? I got some stuff I gotta do, and I think you're the guy to help me with it."
Right.
And that's another fun crossover down the line that we could do. Maybe Chiron comes to Earth, and there's a way to bring him to Earth. So it's that kind of thing where it sets up a lot of awesome stuff to follow, and we're gonna write it and create it so that if you're not familiar with either title, you're gonna get acclimated very quickly to the characters and the worlds and what's going on. And then if you are familiar already with it, it adds even more context. You're gonna be on the inside of the inside joke, but you're not gonna feel lost if you're not yet there. And I think that's an important part too to this, to not make people feel like, well, what if I'm not familiar with, like, what if I'm a Blood Realm reader but I don't know King Cryptid, or what if I'm a King Cryptid reader but I'm not reading Blood Realm? That's fine. If you're a King Cryptid reader and you don't read Blood Realm, you're going to be like, wow, this is a crazy King Cryptid story where he's going over there to this world that I don't even know about. And then if you're a Blood Realm reader not familiar with King Cryptid, you're going to be like, who the heck is this dude showing up, coming from Earth, going into the land of Mordrin? What's that about? How's that going to play out? So it's going to be really fun for both of those kinds of readers. And then if you read both, man, it's going to be a real treat. So I can't wait.
So then, since it's in continuity, is this going to be like, I don't know, for example, King Cryptid issue 9 and Blood Realm issue 15 or something? Or is it going to be its own, like, separate crossover and then, like, you just fit it in the timeline there somewhere?
Yeah, that's more how it's going to be. So it's going to be like a separate crossover, because I don't want people to feel like if they're reading King Cryptid that then they have to go and check out the second half of the story and go get Blood Realm, which is something that I always kind of was annoyed about with a lot of company crossovers at the big two, because I
All
was
those
like, I don't
X-Men
want
issues.
to. It's different if I really loved like Spider-Man or X-Men or whatever, but when they would have those issues that were outside into like a different title where you're like, I don't read this book,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna have to pick this up now. What is this crap? It's that if you want the big crossover event, or you want the thing that's fun, and you just want to have it exist outside of the continuity but still within the continuity, I think that makes it okay. So you don't have to necessarily feel guilted into purchasing something from a different line or whatever. So we're gonna give readers the option with in terms of two things. They could purchase one of them that's it's a King Cryptid book, and the other one's the Blood Realm book. They're both two parts to the story, and then the covers connect in a really fun way. And then there's also going to be a complete graphic novel that they could purchase as well. So the graphic novel will contain the whole thing. In terms of the timeline, Rob, what is it coming after issue 18?
Right after issue 18 in the timeline.
Yeah, so after issue 18 of Blood Realm and after issue 9 of King Cryptid. And it'll fall in place too, where people will have that issue already for both of King Cryptid and Blood Realm, and then that will come out afterwards. So it won't be anything that's kind of weird and out of sync in terms of like if that came out before Blood Realm 18 came out or before King Cryptid number 9 came out. So between 9 and 10 of King Cryptid and between 18 and 19 of Blood Realm. And it kind of will set the pace, I think, for a lot of different things to come in both of those titles too. So it's and again, it's one of those things where, are we going to mention every now and then about something that happened? And am I going to put an editor's note about to see that book? Yeah, but you're only doing yourself harm if you want to miss out on this. I mean, I can't prevent that from happening. It's to your benefit.
Well, this is the first time in 18 years you've had titles cross over, so
yeah,
it's a
big
coming
fun
of age
deal.
story, if you will.
100%.
Yeah, I'm honored. I'm honored to be a part of this. I think it's going to be so exciting.
So Rob, when you're approaching this, how tough or easy is it to let somebody else write your characters? Like, how much do you feel like, oh, but let me, no, or can you just let it go and be like, all right, go for it, Pete, and then hope for the best?
I think Pete has a great handle on these characters in these books because I mean he's been reading them. He reads every issue. And yeah, no, I don't. I'm really confident. I don't know. I think we just really gel already. Obviously we're gonna
Mhm.
have some notes back and forth during the process. But that's normal. That's the fun part. That's when you play. Two kids playing with figures together. That's the
Yeah,
good stuff.
it
So
is.
that's
It's great.
yeah.
Rob can be like, well, that character wouldn't really sound that way, and so maybe like this or like that, or what if this character that I have, maybe I'm not aware of one that he might have an idea for, and then he can bounce that idea off of me.
Right.
So even the way we're going to set it up, I'm going to write the first half, Rob will write the second half, and then he kind of plays editor on the first half, and then I play editor on the second half.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the whole time it's kind of this collaboration effect in terms of what we're doing here in terms of the plotting and everything else. And then Kier is at our mercy. So
That's right.
Rob, the chat's saying you're a little low. They can't hear you.
Am I low?
Uh-oh.
Check.
Uh-oh.
Do I sound
maybe
low?
a little bit if you want to maybe put up
Maybe,
the
I
gain
don't
a
know.
little bit.
Okay.
You sound okay to me, but
I will raise it.
chat's having some issues.
Check. There you go.
So let's assume this goes well. This is a big hit. Everybody wants to buy this book, and why wouldn't they? Is this something you could see yourselves doing like every year, or is this a once in an 18-year thing, or like how? I guess the question is, how do you go forward with a successful crossover to do more crossovers, but not have it go into the big two, 50 different alternative covers territory?
Oh, good grief.
Oh my god.
I think
That's
I
the
think
worst.
yeah, I think at the most this might be like an every 2 year kind of a thing. Depending on how things play out in the future, maybe it could be on a smaller scale and it turns into some kind of like Alterna annual, and we do that sort of a thing, and that's where things exist. But there's a couple different ways for us to do it, but between Rob working on his series and me working on mine, and then anyone else at Alterna in terms of if we can get them going for some kind of a crossover in some way, shape, or form, if the story's right. I think honestly at the most once a year, but more than likely probably once every 2 years.
You need to spread it out a little, like they can't miss you until you're gone, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, well,
Yeah.
not just that too, but also just the feasibility of it, right? I mean,
Right.
in
Mhm.
terms of getting the artists involved, getting us to step away from our main projects and whatnot to work on this, and then also, obviously, of course, the reception from the readers. So if this is a clunker and falls dead,
big one.
we'll be
Yeah.
like, well, oh well. We tried, it was fun, and we won't do that again, But if the readers are really receptive to it, not just in their initial support, but obviously afterwards when they read it and they let us know, and that'll probably take a good solid year and a half to really fully establish how all of that went. And then we can think about maybe doing something else again in the future. But yeah, I think this is really exciting in terms of just for what we've been doing. It might be very mundane to hear something like this occur where it's like, well, this kind of stuff happens in comics a lot. But this is the first time ever this is happening at Alterna. And if this goes right, you're technically looking at the birth of I don't know, the Alternaverse or whatever. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different possibilities that can happen from that point on. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit different too, because when you look at, I'll say Marvel, because they were some of the most egregious. I mean, you did have DC Crisis on Infinite Earth, but Marvel was ramping it up every year. They were doing some kind of crossover, and to me, some of the problems were you get a writer who's basically assigned, like, here, you have to do this character that they didn't care about or maybe didn't know that much about. So the character was like off in that crossover, where as something with such a small company and being creator owned, of course everybody's going to care that their character is seen in the I don't know if you say best light or the correct light for
yeah,
that character.
Mm.
So it seems like there's a lot more care will be taken in the creation of these than Atlantis Attacks or whatever Marvel puts out.
We had Atlantis Attacks. Good grief.
I'm old.
Yeah, I remember that. Uh, yeah, I think you're right, and that's why I was kind of saying before too. This is something I wanted to do for a really long time, but I figured now this will never really happen unless I create my own universe that I own, and then I can have crossovers within that. But to have a crossover with a different creator and something more than just someone in King Cryptid holding a Blood Realm comic, to be like, oh look, it's
Yeah.
kind of like it exists, sort of. But to actually have a full-fledged, really fun story, you need the right creators with the right mindset and that are willing to put a little bit of like the selfish ego aside. Maybe and always everything has to be in mindset of the best outcome for the story and the characters, and then that will be keeping the readers in mind as well, because if you're always thinking about making the best possible story, that means you always have the readers in mind and not just yourself, not just your ego. Your character has to come out looking like the hero or stronger or the best or a lot of page time on there or whatever it may be.
Sure.
But yeah, there's going to be scenes where in Blood Realm, the Blood Realm characters are really, it's really focusing on them. And then there's scenes where King Cryptid, it's his moment to shine, or, his moment to look weak. Because also King Cryptid, his power set revolves around the Earth's moon. It powers him. So if he's not around that, his powers slowly dissipate, and they usually get recharged by the moon. But if he's not getting those powers recharged because he's on another planet, how does that play out? He's still a big dude, 7'2", 400 pounds. But that's very different from his augmented supernatural power set. Go from lifting tons to lifting 300-400 pounds. Right. It is very, very different. Go from flying at crazy speeds to flying at a normalish speed, 20-30 miles an hour instead of 100. So it affects his healing as well. So there's a lot of different things that happen to King Cryptid with that. And he's going to have to obviously acclimate himself to the land of Mordrin, and hopefully Chiron helps him with that. And if he doesn't, it doesn't make a friend out of Chiron, man, that's going to be bad for him.
Yeah.
So do you ever see or perhaps fantasize about one day where there's where you get all the Alterna creators together to somehow do some crossovers a la Secret Wars? Or do you think like, it's better to keep it, like maybe two just crossing over at a time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like to think that far in terms of that kind of a thing. I think we can build up maybe to something like that, but that would be years down the road if that ever happened at all. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Rob's got enough characters and I got enough characters. We could do Secret Wars unto ourselves. Yeah. Right. Give us 3 years. We'll have like 60 characters each.
Right.
And then there could be something even crazier.
So one thing I was wondering too, like how do you, when you have comics that are somewhat tonally different, how do you mesh those together when you're making a crossover?
I'll let Rob field that one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. When the worlds are different. So the question is,
well, because you're like, when I read Blood Realm, I get more of like epic fantasy, sort of like mythological world building, whereas like in King Cryptid, it's closer to modern day fantasy, and it's I would say it's somewhat more grounded because most of the rules that we're used to in our world are still there. and then King Cryptid and the other cryptids are sort of the aberration, but it's still mostly familiar to people, as opposed to yours, which is just
Right.
out of Rob's mind.
That's actually the fun part, is that almost fish out of water vibe here, because King Cryptid comes from this kind of grounded, although it is very supernatural and fantastical too, this grounded world, bringing him
Mhm.
into this real fantastical world that is the antithesis of his world. How does he react to that? Now you start to create all these different themes here, and all these different revelations that he has when he sees the horror of this world, and how, my God, I do not want this to happen to my world. Like, something this evil exists. Like, this world is so torn by darkness. It's incredibly terrifying to King Cryptid. So, he's going to bring that experience eventually, obviously, back with him, obviously. So that's the fun stuff. I'm sure Pete would agree.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's the fun thing is putting that character in an element and an environment that he's not used to at all.
Yeah.
And it's literally a waking nightmare for King Cryptid, because everything that he's doing, that he's trying to fight against at this point, he's going to see it come to full reality of what happens when you don't fight, when you give up, when you let that evil take over. He's going to see that happen on Mordrin. So everything that he's fighting against, like the dark magic and the black budget science and all of the kind of manipulations of nature and every single kind of abomination you can think of. Yeah. What happens when that's ramped up and that's all that's there, because everything else has been essentially wiped out? He's going to see that exist on Mordred, and I think he finds a kinship with Chiron's cause once he learns of it. Sure. And it's I think it's a really interesting place to put both characters in, because it's going to be, I mean, King Cryptid is essentially going to be like an extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional being to Chiron.
Sure.
How he reacts to that is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And likewise, King Cryptid, he's going to be stuck in a world where I think, is going to even be questioning reality all around him. Is this even happening? Right. So there's a lot of things at play here. And I think tonally, because you get Blood Realm that's more mature rated, but Blood Realm also, it doesn't have strong language, same as King Cryptid. So Blood Realm is more violent, and that's why it's mature rated, whereas King Cryptid has more of that kind of appropriate for ages 12 and up, maybe depending on how your kid handles with different things, maybe even 8 and up. It's more of that classic kind of feel for a comic book. But in terms of the tone of it, we'll probably maintain more of like that 12 to 15-year-old sort of maturity. There's going to be gore and violence and things like that, but the style of action within this crossover isn't going to be on par, I think, with a mature rated book. And I don't know how to properly explain that without diving too much into the story. But there's going to be more thematic morality at play here within King Cryptid, because it's really like this epic cosmic evil that's existing, that's right under the nose of Chiron. King Cryptid, it's the same thing with him. He's got a lot of evil brewing right underneath his nose. As part of the reason he came back. He took kind of a hiatus for 30 years, thinking like, what the hell good am I doing? I've been around for hundreds of years, and the world, it doesn't seem like it's getting better, and he has an existential crisis in like the early 90s. Such a grunger, that guy. Puts on some Nirvana or whatever and is having an existential crisis. And then he decides, I'm just going to do what I can in my little corner of the world. I'm going to stop venturing outward. Because everybody sees like the New England stories right now, and that's his central region. But he was around doing things here and there all over the world for a long time. He's a 500-year-old character. But eventually he hits a point where he's like, well, what is all this? Why am I doing this? It doesn't seem like I'm making a difference. And then he eventually realizes what happens when you stop. And it gets much worse when you stop. So even though it feels like you're kind of holding back the waters, it's far different than doing nothing and just letting the flood come in.
Oh yeah.
And King Cryptid really will see that, and I think he'll kind of relate to the fight that Chiron is going through. So they're going to be like cosmic brothers here, I think, by
Oh
the end
yeah.
of it.
Because they're both battling darkness. They're both these almost in a sense knights of the light in a way. So it's going to be really interesting.
So I had a question for you, Rob. I was watching one of your streams the other night, and you were talking about like the history. You're teaching the history of comics and whatnot. And I had a guy on. I think it was last week. He makes role playing games, but he makes modern day urban fantasy. And I was kind of asking him like why it's not a more popular genre. And we got to talking about cyberpunk a little bit, and parts of Blood Realm, the more futuristic story, remind me of cyberpunk. But I was kind of wondering, does it become harder to write cyberpunk? Because what was cyberpunk in the 1980s is kind of like 2024, except we don't get the cool clothes or hairstyles. So like, does it sort of make it harder to write that or even science fiction when like what we consider average everyday now would have been just like fantastically amazing 30 years ago?
Okay, I gotcha. Let me turn off my heater. Is that being too loud or no? The whistling?
It's
I,
there. I don't know if it's too loud,
yeah,
but
it's not
it's
too
there.
loud, but
Okay, all right, because I could turn it off, but it's all right. Okay, so well, the thing is that it has to fit within the world of Blood Realm. So
mhm.
I didn't really think of like, oh, I'm gonna make cyberpunk world. I was really thinking like, okay, how do I take this crazy, fantastical sci-fi, well, excuse me, dark fantasy world? How would that exist in a sci-fi setting? You know, and it can't be too different. There has to be a certain connective tissue to it. You know, so that was the big thing. So it wasn't like I was trying to make a specific genre 100% in terms of like, oh, this has to be cyberpunk vibe. I was obviously inspired by all of the augments, right, on the body and the face and elements of sci-fi body horror, which I really love when it comes to like sci-fi horror art. So again, when I started to illustrate the world, it was actually more challenging because I thought, oh, I'm just going to add spaceships. I'm going to do this. And then as I started to do it, I was like, wow, this is way harder than I thought because this needs to exist within the same place. You know, it can't feel too different. So again, finding that connective tissue, the dark magic. Okay, so how would a building look in the dark fantasy period, but also in the sci-fi, but feel as if, in a sense, they came from the same place? You know, so there was a little bit more sketching and research involved than, believe it or not, than I would have, I had expected when I was going that far into the future.
You
Oh,
could always
thank you,
go
Irene.
full dystopian and put a McDonald's in one of those buildings.
Exactly, exactly.
The Starbucks on every floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. 100%. So, so yeah, that's how I really went about it.
And do you think that we're maybe in the future going to see more of that in Blood Realm, or are you going to go back to a little bit more of the, I could say, classical fantasy settings, or where do you see yourself going time wise, or
We will be, so after this one big this big epic of Chiron's origin, right? Once that's done, we're going to go right back to where we left off in the story. We're going to go right back there. Taco Bell. So, yeah, we will be continuing in the main timeline when the origin story of Chiron is done. Because everything that's happening here in this story is so crucial to where the story goes in the present timeline. It's absolutely necessary. So it's vital that we learn all of this because Chiron's arc really, Blood Realm in a sense is about a lot of the decisions and actions that take place during this time period that we're seeing in these new issues.
Absolutely.
Uh,
I do have to say though, that's Demolition Man.
yeah.
I know they both have
That's
Stallone
right.
and Schneider, and they feel like the
That
very same
was,
movie.
and
That's
only one of
right.
those was
Schneider's
good.
in that too.
But yeah, Demolition Man. I agree. Yeah, Taco Bell. Yeah, you never know. They look like the bank of Taco Bell now. You see them, the new
Oh,
Taco
Yeah.
Bells.
so
Yeah, it's very strange.
Well, I hope in Blood Realm's future we see the 3 shells.
maybe they'll be broken or shattered. We got to do something. I don't want to get caught.
For the longest time, yeah, no, seriously, Kane Q1. I thought they were the same movie, and I just was seeing different parts and just missing them all the time. Whenever they pop up on TV, I'm like, I never saw that part of Judge Dredd. I never saw that part of Demolition Man. And I for the longest time, I'm like, when's Dennis Leary popping up in Demolition Man? Sandra Bullock's in
It's
Judge
all right.
Dredd?
Absolutely confusing. So confusing.
Yeah. It's
Stallone's got
I don't
blue
know.
eyes now, I guess, in Demolition Man. Something must have happened, I suppose.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it's like, yeah, it's 10-year-old me or whatever was getting confused with that.
I was too. I'm still confused. I didn't even realize Schneider was in both of them.
Yeah.
They just kind of
yeah,
blended
yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah.
Trippy.
I don't know. They must have been BFFs back then or something.
They were like, we got the set, and Rob's here, and Sly's here. Might as well make this other movie too.
We'll go back and forth.
It was probably sort of a thing. Oh, who can we get for the comedic sidekick? Rob, you doing anything? No. Okay, you're in.
It's interesting, but I really love the aspect that Rob's got with his Blood Realm. With you get the fantasy and you get the sci-fi and you got that whole entire Arthur C. Clarke thing going on with that magic is indistinguishable from advanced technology, depending upon obviously the time period. And I'm butchering the quote, but it's a very similar kind of thing, where he's got all this magic and everything else in the past that it exists. It's there. But it feels like, much like the world we live in now, a lot of the world has turned its back on spirituality and the unknown and these things that would be considered magic, and has let technology dominate. Science now dominates. That's the new religion. And it feels like a lot has been lost because of that, figuratively and literally. So I really like the progression that he has in that in terms of his story, and I think that Blood Realm really works great when you can have both of those things existing, and that's what I find with the King Cryptid thing, because it hit me one day that I was like, we really are telling sort of similar stories, but on different worlds entirely,
Yeah.
almost like different dimensions. And then I started thinking different dimensions. I'm like, well, all you need to go to a different dimension's a portal. We can make portals happen in King Cryptid and Blood Realm, so
go.
why not? And then it just kind of one thing led to another with my idea with it. And I'd contacted Rob, and then he really liked it. And I was thinking this could work and be really fun.
Oh yeah.
And now here we are. So yeah, I think this is gonna be something that a lot of the readers won't predict necessarily the ramifications of what happens with this crossover, and it's going to be really fun to see how things play out. Big epic battles drawn by Kier especially, and Kier even having a drawing right off the bat of showing King Cryptid armored up. That's
crazy.
It's amazing. And then I told Kier, you have to draw that a lot now, right? And he's like, didn't think about that.
Okay.
It's very, very, very detailed armor, and it looks incredible. And so it's going to be so much fun visually, and the story's going to be there. It's going to have a lot of heart to it. I think it's going to hit readers in a way that they think that they didn't really realize could happen in terms of this kind of crossover, because there's so much heart to it.
Right.
Yeah, and then like I said, the ramifications for both characters and both worlds and both titles, in particular, it's huge. It's I hate to say it because it sounds hyperbolic, but nothing's ever going to be the same again. More so, I'd say honestly, for King Cryptid than for the World of Blood Realm, because King Cryptid would leave, and these aren't spoilers. King Cryptid's going to survive. Chiron's going to survive. If anyone's looking for them
What?
to die or for that to happen, That's not part of the. It's interesting to see the how and the journey and what's going to go on, as
Right.
opposed to
The interaction.
yeah. If all it is like, oh, there's a character death, one of them's going to die. All you're doing is writing yourself into a corner to eventually bring them back, because why would you be so stupid as to kill one of them off? And then the reader automatically knows, oh, this is a cheap, cash grab kind of a thing. So none of that. Not to say the characters won't die or that there's not going to be death or whatever
Sure.
else going on, or the stakes aren't incredibly high. But even what they get through, what they end up surviving, it's ridiculous what's going to occur because of it. So
Right.
they're not out of it yet. And even though they might think the battle has been won, the war is definitely not over.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's the part that I think is interesting, is because King Cryptid is going to this world. And if there's readers out there that are very smart, and of course they are, they're reading Blood Realm and King Cryptid. They're the smartest readers on the planet. They're going to look at that, I hope, and then look at both titles, King Cryptid especially, and then go, knowing what I know now about what occurred in that crossover, what does that mean? That thing, that or that technology, or that what's happening here, does that have a tie to that?
Mm-hmm.
How long has this been going on?
Mm-hmm.
Is this an event that just occurred now, or has this been going on for a long time? Because King Cryptid has been fighting stuff for a long time, and the stuff that's going on within King Cryptid is far older than even him. So it's like, how long has this stuff been happening? And I think readers are really going to start seeing certain things popping up, and maybe even coming up with their own theories, which I think is great. I think that's so much fun to do. That's what I loved, being a reader and trying to piece together certain things. And it seemed like, these characters, it made sense, and this event played out, and this how it would be. And sometimes, they actually do it like that, and it plays out that way. And then sometimes they never really do. And I'm always like, wow, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And that was, I guess that's kind of the birth of being a storyteller. Once you start Rubik's cubing what's already presented in front of you, and coming up what you think what you think is a more, or at least a logical kind of conclusion into what's occurring with the characters and the stories. But I think the readers will have a lot of fun with that, and I think that's what's so important. I want the readers to have fun with it and to get something out of it.
Sure.
So when should people be on the lookout for this one?
So this one, we're going to go and launch a crowdfunding campaign in June, and then it'll be out probably, I'd say, spring 2025.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be out after King Cryptid 5 to 9 are out, and it'll be after Blood Realm issue 18 is out.
Yeah.
And you're having that campaign for 15 to 18 soon, aren't you?
Yes, we're gonna have that in March. I'm gonna be launching the pre-launch page the end of this week or next week. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, there you go.
So White Alakazam asks if you have any ideas on what sort of special goodies you might get.
Well, I mean, I got to talk to Rob about it. So whatever I say here, if Rob's like, no, that's stupid, Pete. Not happening. I'd like to see, we've been having glow-in-the-dark t-shirts on the King Cryptid campaign. I'd like to see a glow-in-the-dark Chiron and King Cryptid
Ooh.
shirt
That'd be cool.
with Kier's art.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
down.
Okay, so Rob hates it, so I'll have to get rid of that idea.
I don't know why, but
This guy's
it
so
seems
tough to please.
it seems fun to me if you had glow in the dark bed sheets.
Oh man, that would be fun. That would be fun. I got a place that could make. We just did like really awesome blankets and hoodies and whatnot. Rob's wearing one of the hoodies, obviously not the blanket right now. But the same place can make like a black light tapestry.
Oh, nice.
That would be kind of cool if we
cool.
got like a black light tapestry on the campaign. I'll have to look into that, see what the feasibility of it is, see how good the black light stuff is. If they can send me like a sample or a prototype or something. We'll have a collector box for the campaign, and just all kinds of different fun stuff. But not too crazy, not too crazy. But it'll be fun. There'll be at least probably 15 or so items, I think. It won't be as crazy as a King Cryptid campaign where we have these full moon and new moon specials, but yeah, we'll have fun with it still.
Awesome. So, getting back to the current Alterna campaign a little bit. So you got about 18, 19 days left?
Yes. Yeah. As of 8 o'clock, it's 18 days, but on the website, I have to manually update it. Doesn't update like Indiegogo does, so it still shows 19 days. We're at 153 backers, 4,140 raised out of the $7,000 goal. So we're at it's 59% there. We need about 2,860 or so to get that goal. We got a little bit of work ahead of us, that's for sure. But I think we're gonna do it. I really do. And if we get to the $8,000 stretch goal, it unlocks Alterna foil card number 7. And again, this is a very slim down campaign. Usually the campaigns have maybe 6 books on them. Maybe in the past we've had 10. But with that comes also added expenditures too. So we have a smaller goal, a $7,000 goal instead of a $10,000 goal. So we're at a nice point right now where we're on pace to reach even the stretch goal. And I think as we keep it up and you got the 19 or 18 days left, I think we'll be able to do that. So thank you guys if you're out there and you're spreading the word, if you've backed it, really appreciate that. And everybody else, if you haven't checked it out, please check it out. It's there's really great books on here. And Horace H. Hoover's a lot of fun. Unit 44, 9 and 10, that series is a lot of fun as well. And I'll let Rob explain Blood Realm.
Yeah, Blood Realm, I'm really excited about this issue. A pivotal moment in the origin of Chiron. Him and Prince XR, their lives are really going to be torn apart in this particular issue. So the stakes are high. The trials are just beginning for Chiron, but we're going to really see when things start to go, I would say, not quite south, but he's going to have to make a choice. He can't resist it anymore. Now he has to make a choice on who does he feel he is aligned to, the humans, his heritage, or the mages who raised him. So a pivotal moment. This is like one of those, they're kicking him down moments here in the story, and he's got to rise from this. But it's also going to expand the world immensely. We're going to see a lot of mage culture here, bigger epic scenes of the city of Vargoth that we never saw before. So we're going to see some even ways in which they worship the gods. We're going to see elements of the gods, a great big temple. So the sacrifices that are required for certain gods. So again, expanding the universe of Blood Realm and seeing how Mordrin was under mage rule.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So let's see. We've got this, and then we've also got the Indiegogo campaign. If people feel they need that veneer of crowdfunding credibility or something. So one thing that I was looking at here, let's say you could get the books individually, but let's say you wanted to get digital bundle for the overseas people, but I am looking for here we go. So just the bundle itself is only $9 here on Indiegogo. So really, those of you in the chat, there's no excuse to not get some and buy some for your family members.
Yeah, get those 4 issues. 4 issues for $9. You're not going to get that anywhere else in comics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then on top of that too, if you're new to a series, and you're like, well, I would get them. It's the first time I'm hearing about them, though. What about the other titles? Well, they're all in the add-on section as well. So you can pick those up, and you won't be lost with anything, and you can get caught right up with those titles. So dive right in. And if you want something right now, I recommend go to the Alterna comic site and get the stuff that we have in stock. And then you can check those out, and then if you enjoy them and you want to pick up the latest Blood Realm, Horace H. Hoover, Unit 44 books, whatever it may be, go and then back the campaign. So we'll ship those out to you. They'll get to you within like a week or two. Again, as long as everything's in stock that you've ordered. and then you can have those, take a look at those, and then go back to campaign.
And, if people do buy it and they like it, they can always go to the Alterna site and pick up back issues if they're available. If
Totally.
they say, "Oh, this Blood Realm's awesome. I want to go see
Or
what
you can
happened before."
go. We got extensive digital catalog here. So if you want something immediate, 99 cents a piece on the digital. So you can get the 13 issues of Blood Realm, 99 cents a piece. That's less than $13. And you can get that right now. And then you can go and look and see what that's all about. And if you enjoy it, if you want the print, and these are on newsprint, keep in mind too. For those that don't know what modern newsprint looks like. So here's the latest issue. Here's Blood Realm 13. And even though it's on newsprint, it still looks incredible. And you don't have to fight with the glare either.
That's great.
So there's the light. The light can kind of, on a glossy, semi-glossy, or matte-coated paper stock, you could have to deal with the light. And instead, on newsprint, nope, you don't have to deal with any of that.
Nice.
And it adds a nice warmth to it, too.
And you get that smell that you just don't get with...
The whole tactile experience, the touch and the feel of newsprint.
That's right.
Nothing like it.
Can't beat it.
So this is April 2024. When do you think people can expect to get the physical copies?
Probably either late April or sometime in May in terms of, it depends on what the printing schedule is like with the printer. But we'll get everything to them around early April. And then once it's with them, everything's up to them at that point. So when they get them printed and then when we receive them, it's out of our hands, unfortunately. But it usually doesn't take too long, a month tops between them printing and then us receiving. So then everything will go out. And usually fulfillment takes like 2 to 3 weeks, and I'll handle all that. So this is probably I don't know, close to our 20th campaign, something like that. 100% fulfillment rate.
Nice.
So nobody has anything to worry about. Yeah.
So,
plus, I ship everything out of the Alterna store anyway all the time too.
So 3 years from now, I won't be asking you what happened to the April 2024 campaign.
Only if your package gets lost or if you misplaced them in your own house. But it won't be my fault. I'll try to still help you out, but it won't be my fault.
So one of the people in the chat, Captain Goodnight, he had some merch idea for you.
I've been looking for a long time, believe it or not. I talked to an air freshener company a while ago trying to explain, you have like a wood pulpy kind of musty smell, like old books. And they were like, well, the closest we could do, we could combine like sandalwood and like a little mahogany and, this and that. And I was like, okay, send me that sample. And then they did. And I was like, it still smells a little too cologne-y. It didn't, maybe it needs to age. But it
needs to age.
Maybe it needs to be in like grandpa's basement or something.
Yeah, exactly.
With a little bit of water damage or whatever, and then it'll turn into that nice smell. But yeah, it just still wasn't on point with it. Wow. I've been looking for a long time. I thought it would have been awesome to have the covers of Alterna books as an air freshener and with that smell, because I'd come home from getting print runs and the whole car would smell like newsprint. And I'm like, there's got to be a way to put this as like a car freshener. And unfortunately not yet, or at least I'm not aware.
Well, White Alakazam wants to know, when's Blood Realm doing a copper-scented air freshener?
Copper scent.
The smell of blood.
The smell of blood.
There you
Smells
go.
like pennies.
Somebody's got to have that.
Yeah.
Works.
Just ship them a lot of pennies.
Yeah, that's all.
Like, here's, you give me $1, I'll give you 100 pennies, and you put them anywhere you want. And there's your Blood Realm copper scented air freshener.
You just save your pennies, and then when you get the copies in, you just like pour a jar of pennies in there, let it ferment for a while, and
that's all.
send them on out.
There you go.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So, what is on the horizon for both of you? Clearly, you got the crossover coming out in a little bit. What else should people be on the lookout for?
Pete, you want to go first or me?
You could go first.
Okay.
I'll be a gentleman.
So, the upcoming campaign, which I will launch the pre-launch page for, will be the next 4 Blood Realm issues. Right? That's 4. Yep, 4 upcoming Blood Realm issues. So we'll get the whole arc of the Dawn of the Wolf complete, and we're gonna have a collector box on that campaign. I'm really excited about that, and a soundtrack vinyl, soundtrack of the. I don't know if it was the opposite. Soundtrack vinyl soundtrack. It's gonna be orchestral, and they should be arriving within 2 weeks. The proofs. Can't wait. This is new territory.
If that does well for you, you should do like a book on record. I love those.
Oh, those were great.
Yeah.
That's
Kind of
like-
combine what you already have with
I
your
was gonna
audio
say.
comic and have like that deep, and then they turn the page.
Yeah, I had. I remember I had Empire Strikes Back book like that.
Oh man. Wow. Yeah, I loved those.
Didn't James O'Barr used to write like a discography in his Crow books, where or maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Like he'd be like, hey, if you're on this page, go play this song by this band.
I
don't
could
know
see
if
that happening with that book, but I can't remember if he did.
Yeah, I don't remember if James did. Yeah.
Somebody
It's a
did.
good idea.
I know I read one. I
That's
could have
cool.
sworn it was one of the Crows. Ah, well. All right. So, everyone, we have come to the time of the night. I have to decide who is the winner for this Thursday night's show. And it's Kevin
think-
Keir.
I think the readers, wherever they are over on that side of
They're the big winners. They're the big winners.
they're the winners. That's for
Once
sure.
they back and receive those issues, they'll be the big winners.
That's right.
But Kevin Keir seems to have gotten a lot of work from the crossover. So I think ultimately he's the winner.
There you go.
You're saying Keir Covington?
Yeah.
Sorry, Keir Covington.
I'm like,
It's been a long day.
I didn't hire him. Not my fault with that, guys. Not my fault.
My bad.
Been saying
My
that a
bad.
lot this week.
Oh,
But yeah,
no.
Keir Covington, man, that dude is so talented, so talented. The stuff that he's doing with King Cryptid, the stuff he's doing with Blood Realm,
Oh my god.
and then he just sent me something earlier tonight. I don't know, Rob, did he text it to you?
no. Oh
Yeah,
no,
he
didn't.
he texted me like this big thing he's working on. This like Chiron and King Cryptid thing.
No.
And it's crazy. It's crazy. Ridiculously talented. And such a
Can't
great
wait.
guy, too.
Amazing. 100%.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming. For people in the chat, there is a link at the beginning of the chat to the April funder on Alterna site. Also, you can get the links to Alterna site and the Indiegogo in the chat or in the description down below. And next week, I've got Joe Sontang, which I probably screwed that name up too. He'll be on Monday night at 8 o'clock. We'll be talking about Reaper Destroyer. If anyone's a fan of sort of late 80s, early 90s Mark Silvestrius art, he's the guy you want to see about it.
Yeah,
So-
Joe's a good dude.
He's a good guy. Yeah, had him on my
Yeah.
channel too.
So good night, everyone, and we'll see you back soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye bye.